Well, our guest speaker today is well known to us. Yeah, do come in, plenty of seats at the front. Now, our speaker is well known to us. His most important claim to fame is that he was Dorset Humanists Humanist of the Year 2010. So a big round of applause for him. In his younger, I just made this up without checking the actual facts with him, but I hope to get this just about right. In his younger days, Chris was a member of a Hindu cult, which was known by the innocuous name of the School of Economic Science, which doesn't sound much like a Hindu cult, does it? But that's how they drew him in. Well, eventually, Chris saw the light and became an atheist. He has been a stalwart member of our committee for about 10 years. I didn't look up the exact dates, but I think about 10 years. And briefly, he led a group called Hasnas. Now, does anyone want to put their hand up and tell me exactly what Hasnas stands for? They hassle people, yeah, that's not quite right. Well, this was Chris's attempt to cover all the bases. It stands for Humanists, Atheists, Sectarists, Skeptics, Naturalists, Ethicists, Rationalists and Scientists. Did I get that right?
Well, it was, okay, Hasnas. Who was a Hasna? Yeah, put your hand up. No?
Oh, we got
no, you won't, John. No, you won't, John. Were you a Hasna? Don't think so. No. Okay, possibly in that case, yeah. So it stands for the Humanist Atheist. So that's the HA, scientific secularist, naturalistic, and we changed it from ethical to evolutionary, rationalist skeptics. So I basically got the whole lot in.
I know, that's amazing. But I always thought Hassan sounded a bit like Hassocks, which is a bit religious, isn't it? But anyway, never mind. Well, Chris has a master's degree in medicinal science. He is a science tutor, and last but not least, he is president of Atheism UK. So will you please give a fantastic welcome to Chris Street.
Thank you. Can you all hear me? If you can put your hand up if you can't hear me. And if I go like this, can you hear me? Yep, good. Right. I think I unplugged your phone.
You unplugged it?
Yes. Okay, well, it's not gone terribly smoothly, the technical side of things today. I arrived here and amazingly my laptop charger had blown up. So it was a good job that I had told David to bring his laptop as an emergency backup. So I've done a few of these presentations before, and it's quite extraordinary how many things can go wrong, and indeed do go wrong. So, okay. Well, as David said, I've been a member of Dorset Humanists Committee for 10 years. I've been a member for about 11 years. And so I'll be going through what Atheism UK stands for, and why we created it, or why 3 others created it. I joined about 2 years after they started. So, right, so the talk, yeah, it'll be a bit about Atheism UK. By the way, I'm going to be throwing in ad hoc videos of people like Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens and Ricky Gervais, so it won't be all me speaking. So I'll be talking about religious faith per se and the scientific method. A bit about the existence of God, a few videos. By the way, who here, can you put your hands up if you would consider yourself a humanist? Because we've got a lot of guests here today. Okay, that's great. Put your hands up if you would consider yourself an atheist. Yeah, that's great, good, excellent, jolly good. Right, so about 2 weeks ago, we had the president of American Atheists come and visit us, gave us a talk. and we filled the Brockway Hall in Conway Hall, and it was a very lively meeting. So I'll be looking at what he said as well. In other words, the US equivalent perhaps of the UK. And then a quick look at some politicians' faith. And there's something called street epistemology. It's nothing to do with me, by the way. My name is Chris Street, but this is nothing to do. Street refers to street epistemology refers to talking to Christians or any religious person on the street and understanding why they believe the things they do. So I may, if I have time, I'll go into that as well. And it's a topic that's been raised on our forum. In fact, I think Dave here, did you raise it? Yeah. So Dave raised it only about a week ago, unbeknownst to him that I was going to probably talk about it. And then I'm going to say, join Atheism UK. Now, it's free to join, or you can, as a supporter, or it's 12 quid, basically, if you join for 12 quid. Today, it's normally 24 quid, but today, special offer, 12 quid, which is actually the concessions rate. So a lot of you would already get the concessions rate.
Does that come? Does it go
it's
after a year?
No, it doesn't. No. It's been like that for forevermore. So who are Atheism UK? Well, that's our website. We're primarily a web-based group, atheismuk.com. It was founded by Mark Embleton and Richard Green in March 2009. And I joined Atheism UK because Richard Green gave a talk to Dorset Humanists in November 2010. Now, actually, he was a Hasna. He was one of the members of Hasnas. In fact, he was one of the original Hasnas members. So I've known him since 2007. And so I was on their council for a couple of years, and then in 2014, there's only 6 of us then, and the previous president and founder, Mark, he didn't want to do it anymore. He's still on the council, and I was left with a short straw. So there were 6 of us, and the other 5 didn't want to do it, so I became the president. So
sorry, Chris,
yeah.
Does it kind of make you the equivalent of the Archbishop of Canterbury?
No, I think we can't really compare. No. The other difference is, I mean, the church membership is declining. We know that, but Atheism UK has only got 85 paid-up members, and I suspect the Church of England have a few more than that. So, by the way, if you want to ask any questions, okay, don't wait until the Q&A. Okay, if you've got a burning question or just a question, ask it now, okay, or when you think of it. If I get lots of questions, I'll probably say, right, can we wait until the Q&A? But basically, interrupt me if you wish. Okay. Right. Now, unfortunately, Richard Green died last October, which is... so this, in a way, is a bit of an obituary talk, because Richard was the founder of Atheism UK, as I say, along with Mark Embleton. But a lot of the principles and the goals were dreamt up by Richard. So currently we've got 9 council members who meet on a monthly basis. 4 times a year we meet by face-to-face, and the rest of the time it's Skype meetings. As I say, we've got 85 fully paid up members, and we've got 2,900 on our mailing list. So if we post something, it'll reach 2,900 people. So where does Atheism UK fit in? Well, of course, there's atheism, there's secularism, and there's non-theistic life stances, for example, humanism. And there's obviously an overlap. Humanists are either agnostics or atheists, so there's clearly an overlap there. It's not working, by the way, very well, never mind. And secularism, typically the National Secular Society is the main body that deals with secularist issues. And So we feel that there may be a role for Atheism UK. Specifically, we are challenging religious faith, and we challenge the fact that God doesn't exist, we don't believe, and therefore we are challenging also religion and its doctrines and pronouncements and teachings. So we think we're the only distinctively atheist organisation in the UK. In other words, we're a properly formed company, and so we believe we're the only organisation like that. There are, of course, lots of internet organisations as well. So our ultimate goal is the end of religious faith, the false and irrational belief that God exists, and of religion, the social manifestation of faith. By the way, if you want to interrupt, ask a question, please feel free. So our objectives are quite simple. They're the advancement of atheism and the challenging of religious faith, and anything that relates to those two issues. So our main principles are that humans have fabricated religion, and so that's the first main principle. Religious texts are flawed and are as fallible as the people that wrote them. And of course we believe that religious organisations mustn't receive privileges, so there's an overlap there with National Secular Society. And so we think that religion is a lie, basically. Yes, all of it. So that's why we are challenging it. Another key principle is that God or gods do not exist. They're just myths created by humans, and they're not two separate realms. In other words, the natural and the supernatural, but there's just one realm, which is the natural. And again, gods are myths, all of them, without any exceptions. And another key principle is that morality develops independently of religion. So there's no divine moral authority. And we think that the religious inculcation, indoctrination of children corrupts their morality. So children are not born with any religious beliefs or affiliations. These are just imposed. So of course atheism is not in itself a source of morality, but it perhaps frees morality from corruption by religion. Another principle is that a religion inhibits rational thought. I won't go through all of those. By the way, can you read those? Can you put your hands up if you can't read them? So you can all read those? Oh, brilliant, excellent.
Not the small print at the bottom.
No, yeah. You mean that bit?
Yeah.
No, you can read the bullet points.
It's rather like one of those reading things that the opticians that get worse.
Yeah, it does. Don't bother. Those are the sources, and that is a note which you definitely don't need to read. Okay. Right, so just have a quick look at that. If there are any questions on that. The starred items are the clauses that I've introduced since David Silverman, who's the president of American Atheists. This is literally the last 2 weeks. So the council haven't, as it were, agreed to these points. But basically his point is that religion doesn't deserve respect. You shouldn't be offended by, you shouldn't let people say, I'm offended by your words. Because you are telling the truth as you see it about religion, and you shouldn't be saying sorry when people are offended by your words. And Kathy, you want a quick chat on that?
When you say religion doesn't deserve respect,
Yeah.
I don't believe in God.
Right.
I don't believe in religion, as you know.
Yeah.
But I do believe in respecting other people's
Yes.
points of view.
Yeah, yes.
So how do I
Right, okay. Well, religion per se doesn't deserve respect because it's based on a false premise that there is a God, God's to exist. Of course, I respect people's views and I respect people, but I don't respect
But if someone
religion.
says
Yeah,
they believe in religion,
yeah.
If we're going to have a two-way conversation, can we have the usual arrangement?
So I'll
The
ask you
speaker
again.
has a microphone.
Yeah, actually that's a good point. Could we give Kathy a
So
microphone?
the arrangement we'll have then, if you've got a question you'd like to ask in the body of Chris's talk, we'll just get Phil to come around with the mic. So,
Yeah.
Phil, can you just go to
Yeah.
Kathy? That's great.
Yeah.
Just
No, carry on,
so
carry on.
that everyone can hear.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I asked Chris how he married religion doesn't reserve respect with how you actually respect other people's views, which I think as a human as you should, though I don't believe in God. That's what I was asking Chris.
Yeah. And my point is that whilst I don't respect religion per se, that doesn't mean to say that I don't respect the person themselves. They have their own views and they are quite welcome to having their views. But if they start talking religion at me, that's the actual subject itself I don't respect.
Okay, that's all for that.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Another one is, don't let religious laws limit your freedom of expression since they have no authority over the non-religious. And I'll give some examples of that when I talk about David Silverman's view. Yeah, hi Phil. Yeah.
I guess the problem is that freedom of speech, you can't shout, for obvious reasons, fire in a cinema.
Absolutely, yeah.
Although I believe that actually people have to take offence, you can provoke offence to be taken, and I think that's probably inappropriate, and actually all it does is, in a psychological point of view, is actually make their views even more firm and embeds them.
Okay. Well, I take your point, Phil. There will be several slides that address this point about accommodationism versus confrontation, shall we say? But I take on board that. So let's move on. So our position on faith is that, well, there are two types of faith. These are the definitions in the dictionary. The sort of common one is complete trust or confidence in someone or something. So you might say this restores one's faith in politicians. So of course we're not talking about that. We're talking about religious faith. So a strong belief, which is defined in the dictionary, is a strong belief in the doctrines of religion based on spiritual apprehension rather than proof. So we are just solely concerned with the religious faith. So we think that faith is belief without evidence. So for example, the faith that God created all life on earth 6,000 years ago, maybe as an example. Of course, evidence can be scientifically investigated, and whereas faith through religious indoctrination or spiritual apprehension does not, by its very nature, provide any credible evidence to investigate. Now, Atheism UK distinguished supporters, we've been going since 2009. These are people that have either spoken to us or we have had contacts with over the years. Yes. Hi.
Yeah, sorry, it was your last point.
Yeah, go on.
Turned away, I couldn't get
Yeah,
my
go
hand
on then.
noticed. I really got to challenge you on that. I'm not religious, but
Right.
I'm defending religion here.
Sorry?
I'm not religious.
Right.
I'm a humanist, but I'm defending religion here because I think what you've written in that first point is wrong.
Right.
Most people, there's a very small minority of
what you mean
religious
the point
people
about
who believe that the world is 6,000 years
Right,
old.
okay, yeah,
the
true.
vast majority would not.
No, that's true. I'm not saying that that is the vast majority. I think that's a very, nowadays, it's a very tiny majority, a minority. But nevertheless, there are people that still believe that. They're creation.
Yes, but Christians could dismiss them just the same as atheists can.
Right, yeah. Just an example. So it just says e.g. example. In that case, there is no evidence that at all that the Earth is 6,000 years old. In fact, the Earth is 4.6 billion years old. So the order of error is vast. And there's plenty of evidence to suggest that the Earth is 4.6 billion years.
Yes, but my main point was that mainstream Christians, for example, the Archbishop of Canterbury, would never believe that.
No. That's just an example of faith without evidence. Yeah. Okay, so we've got, these are the distinguished supporters. You've probably heard of most of them. Susan Blackmore, Darrell Ray, he spoke to us in the early days of Atheism UK, I think about 2010, about his God Virus book, and he founded the Recovering from Religion. So that's an organisation based in America where former priests who have lost their faith, they have a safe space to discuss their new views. P.Z. Myers, who blogs Frangular, the science blog, and we've also had some contacts with Maryam Namazie over the years, and I organised a while back for Alex Rosenberg to come and talk to us about his Atheist Guide to Reality, and he talked to us in London, and in fact our former chair, Jane Bannister, and her husband Dennis came along to hear that talk. So, as I say, Richard Green was the main founder of Atheism UK, and as I said, he died last October. He wrote the Constitution. He was a lawyer and a physicist by training, and so he wrote the Atheism UK Constitution, and he also wrote various technical reports on civil marriage, the Lord's spiritual, namely the bishops in the House of Lords, and canon law. And he also wrote about religious education in academies and the use of the term is spiritual in education legislation. And so he also drafted, for example, a letter to record the religious beliefs of UK MPs, and adopted the principles of Atheism UK. He also came up with the Atheism UK strapline, which is challenging religious faith. That was actually kind of slightly borrowed from the NSS strapline, which is challenging religious privilege. And he wrote various other articles, including the God Virus and articles on the Sharia law as well. So we'll cover the point about his nobody has the right not to be offended on free speech. So I'm now going to play a quick video of Richard Green. Okay, we're up and running again. Thanks for the apologies for the delay. Right, where were we? Yes, another thing that Richard Green mentioned, that he thought that religious faith is a human universal and religion is universally dangerous. Another thing that we were trying to campaign was to remove what we call the weasel word spiritual from the law, which is the spiritual, moral, social and cultural. So nobody has the right not to be offended. So Dan Dennett said the religions have contrived to make it impossible to disagree with them critically without being rude. And at this time I'm going to try to play this.
There's some charlatan, some faith healer charlatan, and if we know that, do we not have a moral obligation to speak out and say, hang on, do you realize that you're being conned here? Now, if you do that, you may destroy somebody's precious illusion, and we shouldn't do that lightly. And I'm not calling on us to do that. I am saying it's a problem. And it's a problem because it creates a hypocrisy trap that we're all in. Hypocrisy trap. It was nicely exposed recently when Mel Gibson, a fundamentalist Catholic, blurted out in an interview in the New Yorker that his wife was damned, she was going to hell because she wasn't a Roman Catholic, and that's, as he put it, that's what the chair says, and I go with what the chair says. And a lot of people were shocked by this. A lot of Catholics were deeply dismayed by this. Two groups of Catholics. Those that don't believe that at all, and just thought, this is an embarrassment to our religion. And those who do believe it, but think it was very impolitic of him to say it. How many are in which group? Who knows? That's the hypocrisy trap. Right now, we have a Congress. Every single member of Congress believes in God. How many do you suppose really believe in God? Who knows? And sometimes they have the best of reasons for not saying what they really believe in.
They'll get beat.
They'll get beat. But there's even other reasons too. I mean, Granny would break her heart to know that I've lost my faith. So you button your lip. And so we're living in a world where there's just layer after layer after layer of hypocrisy. And I think we should start trying to cut through that.
The book is Breaking the Spell, Religion as a Natural Phenomenon. Daniel C. Dennett. Thank you very much for being with us, and Charlie would send his best.
Thank you, Bill. I've enjoyed talking with you very much.
So the issue is, do we accommodate or confront religion? Because confront conveys a hostile or argumentative intent. But that's what Atheism UK are trying to do. So we're challenging religious faith head on. But no matter how reasonably or politely you do this, we're always going to be accused of being hostile or argumentative or being confrontational. And so Susan Blackmore said that religion's got a really useful, a really clever trick, and I'm not sure how the great religions managed to pull this one off. It's to make the rest of us feel that we ought to respect people for believing impossible things on faith, and that we should not laugh at them for fear of offending them. So in a society that strives for honesty and openness, that values scientific and historical truth, and that encourages the search for knowledge, this is outrageous, and it's scary that we still fall for it. So the advancement of atheism entails a challenging religious faith. But because of the zero tolerance with which religious faith is evolved as a defense mechanism for itself, this is always perceived by some on both sides of the faith divide as confrontation. But the alternative to confrontation is accommodation, which means perhaps a settlement or a compromise. But there's no scope for compromise between religious faith and the lack of it. There's no possible halfway house. You either have it or you don't. You can't have half a religious faith. So to accommodate means to refrain from confronting completely, and confronting means challenging religious faith. Therefore, to accommodate religion is to abandon the advancement of atheism. So again, this was a discussion that Sam Harris had with Neil deGrasse Tyson on this.
While we're waiting for this to happen, if you have any questions for Sam, we could do that very quickly. Neil? Excuse me.
Sam, there are plenty of things people do that don't make sense, but of course they're otherwise harmless to others, and might be mildly harmless to the person who thinks it or believes it, but no one makes a big deal of it. If the religious community, instead of going away, morphed into a systems of philosophy that made no attempt to say things about the physical world that are easily verifiable by the methods and tools of science and rational inquiry. And they only simply talked about, how to treat your neighbor, how to, maybe give you someplace to think you might be when you're dead. What's the harm in that? If we're going to try to be realistic about how effective any such movement that you want to support can be, either you're going to say one day there can be no religions in the world, or one day there's a profile of the various religions that have changed to the point where they don't trigger anybody's reaction, anyone such as your reaction.
Right. Well, I'm just not hopeful that they can change. They can be so chaste in their proclamations about reality so as not to conflict with those of us who are trying to speak sensibly about reality and to shape public policy that's based on sensible conversation. So, for instance, what do you do when you find out that your neighbor's religion has proscribed drawing a caricature of a certain historical figure and is prescribed in such terms that you can get 100,000 people in the town square calling for the deaths of newspaper editors and cartoonists for drawing, for publishing pictures of the Prophet Muhammad? It seems to me that really is a deal breaker. I mean, this is just free speech and rational understandings of civil society just have to win. It's just there's no accommodation with that. What was so scandalous about that episode is that we really caved in. I mean.
My computer's trying to say, so it should be back with us in about 10 seconds.
Do you want to take any questions, Chris?
Yeah, whilst the computer's doing its thing. Have you got any questions?
While we're waiting for that. Maryam was first, so Phil, if you'd like to just get to the pair at the back. Thank you.
Lost my faith was on one of those slides. It does come from a standpoint where it seems like you've come pre-installed with this faith as an automatic thing, and that somewhere through life you lose an important part of something which suggests God. But that's not the case, obviously, for any rational thinker. Lost my faith, it shouldn't be a pre-installed thing. It gives the advantage, if you like, to the religious people that that's the normal standpoint, and we are in some way defective, that we've got something missing.
Yeah, I mean, when we're born, are we born with faith? No. I think not. I think we're all born atheists. It's just that beliefs, whether they be faith or indeed atheism, are built in at a later date.
A couple more people have their hands up. Let's take a couple more. Yes, Simon, and then.
Yeah, I mean, is this working?
Yeah, if you can speak into it.
Yeah, I think Sam Harris. Well, it's unfortunate his clip was truncated, but he's allowing the extremely firm religions and ignoring things like the good old Church of England that does seem incredibly flexible. not just in this century but in the past. And I think the point he's actually making isn't about religion, but about any organisation which tries to impose itself on the rest of society. Rather sort of passive religions you shouldn't get upset about.
Yes. Should we be upset about Islam?
Not per se, but if Islam is forcing people who have chosen not to be Islamic to behave in a certain way, then yes.
So we are concerned about. How about the Catholic Church? Are we concerned about the Catholic Church?
Same applies. I mean.
So what about the paedophile C of E priests that have to?
Well, that's they're paedophiles against their own faith. It's not because they're C of E or Christian. It's because they're naughty boys.
Okay, let's take one more from Dave, and then I'll let you carry on, Chris. Phil, can you just come to Dave? Thanks.
My point wasn't really a question, it was more to answer Simon in that the C of E may seem very benign, but the bishops in the House of Lords have actually opposed most steps forward in promoting gay rights and increasing equality for LGBTs, and the same with women's rights as well. So although they appear benign and very nice, they're still opposing rights.
Okay, we'll let Chris continue with the presentation. We'll take some more questions.
We've got plenty of time. We've got half an hour, 35 minutes, so we've got plenty of time. Right, so well, we know that the non-religious have increased in numbers in the last 10 years. So 2001, there was 15% of the UK population. This is a census. This is a snapshot of the entire population. So that's in 2001. We're around 15%, 7.7 million of us were non-religious, and so 2011 it came to 25%. So now 14 million of us are non-religious. So that's encouraging. What's even more encouraging, perhaps, is that 65% of the 18 to 24 age group are non-religious. That compares with 55% in 1983, and but of course 24% of the 75 to 94 age group, again in 2010 this is, were non-religious. So you can see that what that means is that each generation is less likely than its predecessor to be born into the religious families, and also that this lack of religiosity tends to remain with an individual as they grow older. So it does seem that the UK's non-religious levels of non-religiosity is going to increase. And those are some of the figures that were produced by the British Social Attitude Survey in 2010. Those are the figures there. Right. Now, one of the things that we got involved with was ex-Muslims coming to us. So this was literally a month after I became president of Atheism UK in July 2014. And we had these heart-rendering stories from ex-Muslims. At one stage, they were happening every month. We were getting these pleads for help. So here's an example. My name is, and I've been living in the UK for the past 5 years. I changed to atheist. Excuses, I haven't really edited his paragraph. I changed to atheist last year, and now I want to go back to Pakistan. But before I decided to go back, I got a problem there. Someone told my family that I was atheist, so now I want to claim asylum. But the problem is that immigration, namely the Home Office, doesn't agree with me being atheist. So he was currently in Harmondsworth Detention Centre. And I actually visited him in this effectively it's a prison for people awaiting Home Office judgments. And so the Home Office were going to give him a ticket back to Pakistan, and so he was saying that he was likely to be killed when he went back to Pakistan, if he went back to Pakistan. So, sorry.
Killed by whom?
Unfortunately, his relations. That was his biggest fear, that his relations, because they knew he was an atheist, they would kill him. And so I did went and saw him, but unfortunately we couldn't. After many emails, after trying to get the press interested, we couldn't rescind his ticket back to Pakistan. And the last that I heard of him was an email from him saying that I had been attacked at the airport by people that knew I was coming. So these are quite serious matters. And since then we have had, I would say, dozens of requests for help. And unfortunately we don't have the resources really to help them, regrettably. We've passed them on to people like Council of Ex-Muslims of Great Britain, that's Maryam Namazie. But we feel that it's a serious situation, but we can't really do a great deal for them, regrettably. Let's go back to faith briefly. So here's Christopher Hitchens on faith. Faith is the surrender of the mind. It's the surrender of reason. It's the surrender of the only thing that makes us different from other mammals. It's our need to believe and to surrender our scepticism and our reason, our yearning to discard that and put all trust or faith in someone or something. That's the sinister thing to me. Of all the supposed virtues, faith must be the most overrated. So this is Christopher Hitchens' razor. That which can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. So the burden of proof regarding the truthfulness of a claim lies with the one who makes the claim. If that burden is not met, the claim is unfounded, and its opponents need to argue further in order to dismiss it. So God is an unnecessary hypothesis for which there is no evidence, so it can be disregarded, and no evidence is needed to disregard it. Richard Dawkins also has, as you would imagine, a few things to say about it.
I think first the realization that there are lots of different religions and they can't all be right. And the Christian one in which I was brought up was clearly only one of many. But that didn't finally make me into an atheist. What finally made me into an atheist was the realization that there was no scientific reason to believe in any sort of supernatural creator. And that came with the understanding of Darwinian evolution. Not in the sense of faith as meaning belief in something for which there is no evidence. There are various senses of faith in which scientists do participate. Those branches of science which I don't understand, for example, physics, it could be said, I suppose, that I have faith that physicists understand it better than I do. And so when I say something that physicists tell me, such as that there was nothing before the Big Bang, they're not allowed to talk about the word before in the context of the Big Bang, I sort of have faith that physicists understand enough to be allowed to say that, even though I don't understand why they're allowed to say that. But it's not faith, it's not blind faith, it's not faith in the absence of evidence. It's faith that's based upon confidence in the scientific method, in the scientific peer review process, the fact that I know that there are other physicists who can test, verify, criticize the views of any one physicist. So it's not the same as religious faith, which is based upon no evidence at all. Well, it's certainly true that so many people do have religious faith. not just individual people, not all individual people do, but all cultures, I think I'm right in saying that all peoples, in the plural, have had faith, religious faith of some kind. They believe in some kind of supernatural gods or goddesses or leprechauns or whatever it might be. Why do they have it? Well, I think it's very tempting when you don't really understand what's going on, when you're ignorant of the world, when you find yourself surrounded by a wonderful world, a puzzling world, a mysterious world, a frightening world. It must be quite tempting to put your faith into a supernatural being of some kind.
Got any questions?
Do we have any questions?
So I'll just say a quick something about the scientific method. So science isn't just physics, chemistry and biology. That's what I tutor at GCSE and A-level. So the basics of science are simple. Who said that? That can't be right. Accessible and wonderfully elegant. But the scientific method, well, it's the best way to distinguish truth from falsehood. And it can be applied to assertions or beliefs that rely on measurement or observation, whether about the physical universe or how people think or dream. So in a way, it's a kind of truth detector. It's a systematic way of rechecking and keeping a record of what fails and passes. So this was a recent talk we had about 10 days ago by David Silverman, and he's got a new book out called Fighting God, and so his brand of atheism is called Firebrand Atheism, and he says that well, this is his kind of summary. Well, religion is a lie, all of it. He's quite forthright, this guy. Gods are false, all of them. Respect is earned, and religion hasn't earned any. Believers' beliefs do not imbue respect for the religion. So you shouldn't be feigning respect for the unrespectable. Figure 5. This is from his book. And of course, figure 5 is not the Prophet Muhammad. So he says, don't accept inequality or privilege as acceptable, even if it's the norm. So these are his 5 points of Firebrand Atheism. Don't let I'm offended by your words silence you. Clarify that it's their beliefs, not the people with which you take issue. And if someone tries to limit your freedom using religion, do points 1 to 4. And so at the talk, he was proudly drawing Muhammad in the books. He was signing the books and drawing Muhammad. So he's actually challenging the fact that the religious are telling us not to draw Muhammad. Yes?
What are the words beside the face?
Oh, right, okay. Sorry. Yeah, that's from his book. It says, not Muhammad, Prophet of Islam. Now, the reason he had to put that in his book was because Macmillan refused to publish it without that. He could not put in a picture of Muhammad into his book. They were absolutely refused, and so that was the compromise situation. Okay.
Chris?
Yes?
I have actually seen a picture of Muhammad on the internet. That there was one done from a painting of him some years ago, so I don't know why they can say
Well, it might be confusing, but unfortunately, of course, with Charlie Hebdo, people died, and of course, that even before that, I think it was Denmark in 2007, the place was bombed where they were drawing these pictures of Muhammad. So it's been going on for many, many years, a decade perhaps. So his zero truths. The number of times an atheistic argument has been beaten by a theistic argument is 0. God did it has never been proven right. The number of psychics, demons, ghouls, ghosts, or spirits that have been been proven real is 0. The number of miracles that have actually been proven to have happened is 0. The amount of evidence that separates the myths of yesterday from today's respected religions is 0. In other words, the sum total of scientifically valid proof for anything supernatural ever found in the world history is 0. So, as I say, he's fairly forthright. And he also claims that euphemisms hurt the cause. So, Atheist answers the question about religion, whereas I treat people nicely. By the way, that was or humanism maybe, does not best answer, what is your religion? So atheist is the broadest and correct term, which is, of course, absence of a belief in a deity. So there's nothing shameful or negative in the word atheist, but religion wants you to think there is. Of course it does. And so he's got some studies on the understanding of the word atheist. This is, of course, in America. 87% of Americans know what an atheist is, and 50% know what an agnostic is. 30% correctly define secular, but only 11% know what a humanist is or a freethinker. So if you are introducing yourself and people are asking you what your religion is, it's maybe best to say you're an atheist, and then of course you can say, and having explained that, you can go on to say you're a humanist or a secularist or whatever. So that's the figures. If you were a religion, which term would you want atheists to use? Well, surely it could well be a non-religion. It could well be a non-religion. And that term he didn't test for. That's a good point. And certainly in the UK, I think the term non-religion is certainly used in, for example, the census. Yeah. Oh, I just threw this in. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Carl Sagan. Let's have a look. Should we have a Christopher Hitchens on Islam? Yep. Wrap it up fairly soon. Yeah. Okay.
So it depends if you need to make.
I think we'll move on. Here's Russell's teapot. I'm a little teapot, steaming and hot. I'm orbiting the sun. Try and prove that I'm not. So, in other words, the burden of proof lies upon a person making these unfalsifiable claims, rather than shifting the burden of disproof to others. So, in other words, saying So to assert without offering proof that a teapot orbits the sun somewhere in space between Earth and Mars, you would not expect anyone to believe in solely because assertion could not be proven wrong. So that's one of the famous kind of recent disproofs of God, perhaps. Problem of evil. Have you seen this one? Stephen Fry. It's quite a polemic. Shall we look at that? It's only 2 minutes.
Suppose what Oscar believed in as he died, in spite of your protestations, suppose it's all true, and you walk up to the pearly gates and you are confronted by God. What will Stephen Fry say to him, her, or it?
I will basically, what's known as theodicy, I think, I'll say bone cancer in children? What's that about? How dare you? How dare you create a world in which there is such misery that is not our fault? It's not right. It's utterly, utterly evil. Why should I respect a capricious, mean-minded, stupid God who creates a world which is so full of injustice and pain? That's what I would say.
And you think you're going to get in?
No, but I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to get in on his terms. They're wrong. Now, if I died and it was Pluto, Hades, and if it was the 12 Greek gods, then I would have more trouble with it, because the Greeks were they didn't pretend not to be human in their appetites and in their capriciousness and in their unreasonableness. They didn't present themselves as being all-seeing, all-wise, all-kind, all-beneficent. Because the God who created this universe, if it was created by God, is quite clearly a maniac. Utter maniac. Totally selfish. We have to spend our life on our knees thanking him? What kind of God would do that? Yes, the world is very splendid, but it also has in it insects whose whole life cycle is to burrow into the eyes of children and make them blind. They eat outwards from the eyes. Why? Why did you do that to us? You could easily have made a creation in which that didn't exist. It is simply not acceptable. So, atheism is not just about not believing there's a God, but on the assumption that there is one. What kind of God is he? It's perfectly apparent that he is monstrous, utterly monstrous, and deserves no respect whatsoever. The moment you banish him, the life becomes simpler, purer, cleaner, more worth living, in my opinion.
That sure is the longest answer to that question that I ever got in this entire series.
Right, so here we go. We've got give us a vote on this one. 3 minutes. Not going. Fair enough. Okay.
I'm going to
wrap it up. Let's have some questions. Any questions?
Okay, let's open this up to questions. So, John, if you want to come around and John, comments and questions.
Thanks, Chris, for a very interesting presentation. Can I ask, do you have any numbers on the American success via David Silverman's outfit in converting people to atheism? I'm reminded of his predecessor, whose name's escaped me.
Madeleine O'Hara.
Madeleine.
I think Madeleine O'Hara. Yeah.
Every time I've seen her presentation, I thought, well, perhaps there might be something in this religion, because she was so offensive,
right,
to people that didn't believe what she believed. That I could only see a negative side. And David Silverman seems to be taking on the same output and presentation. I wonder if you've got any numbers on how persuasive they are with their methodology. Thank you.
Yeah. I think he gave some figures for example, they do billboards. So in Times Square they'll put a billboard up at Christmas. And so, for example, he gave graphs of number of people searching for atheist on Google, so you can see the trends, and it correlated with his billboards. But he does admit that the proportion of people that have joined up to American atheists is still tiny compared with the entire possible population of non-religious people in America. So he's not cracked that, I don't think. He hasn't had a huge increase as far as I'm aware. Yep.
Simon, and then we've got Aaron here. Don't be shy, put your hand up. We've got just the same people asking questions.
If you haven't got any question, I'll carry on because I've got plenty to look at.
Sorry, it's me again. Look, I personally think the Charlie Hebdo cartoons were in bad taste anyway. Now. Do you think there should be any restriction on freedom of speech when it is attacking somebody else?
Well, yes. If, for example, it involves some form of hate speech that incites violence, that is clearly where you definitely draw the line. It's a very good question. I've got no specific where do you draw the line. I think you have to make it on a case-by-case basis. Atheism UK, when Charlie Hebdo happened, we refused to put those cartoons on our website, and as a result, actually 2 of our council members left. They resigned.
What?
Yeah. And so I was quite clear that I didn't want to go down that route. And partly because of the safety of me and the rest of the council and our members. And that was a viewpoint taken by the majority of the UK press, the vast majority.
I think the BHA published one or two, if I remember right.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
But they took them down within a day.
Okay.
They did actually publish.
Oh, it's in America in 2015.
Sorry.
We need to wait for the microphone. Let's go to Lynn. And Aaron's waiting patiently as well.
It's not a question, just an observation. But obviously, as a staunch atheist, I hope to see the absence of religious belief in the future. But I do think there is something about the cultural tradition and heritage of the more benign religions, which I hope will sort of survive, because you see some of the ceremonies, like our Santamus and our Eggy Bunny times and things like this, and even some of the processions of some of the Indian religions and celebrations of community. And I hope that the different religions, as they move towards atheism, can take their traditions and meld them into just a community social history of sort of where they came from. And I hope they can recognise that they don't have to lose all of that culturalness and tradition by saying they reject religion at the same time.
Yeah, I agree. It'd be great if that could happen. And that's certainly Dan Dennett's view, is that over a period of decades, religions will become much more benign and gradually perhaps fade away in the very long term. But then you've got religions like Islam, or indeed maybe the Catholic Church back in the 1930s, where it's a completely different kettle of fish, really.
I think there's an element of truth in what you're saying, Glenn, about certain liberal forms of Judaism. I mean, I know quite a lot of Reformed Jews who would consider themselves atheists, but they continue to practice Judaism as a kind of community tradition.
It just reminded me when David and I were representing the British Humanist Armed Forces Association and laying wreaths at the cenotaph, and we were invited back to the town hall afterwards for drinks, and we were chatting with the chief rabbi, was she? But president of the Reformed Synagogue, and very lovely lady, and she said, "Oh, you really must have some more joint events with us, because most of our members are atheists, so we would really have a..." Right, there we are, you see.
Yeah. Let's go to Ronja. Ronja here. We'll get to you, Aaron, don't worry.
Yeah, I will say something very naturally. My daughter is a frothingly rabid atheist. But I often accuse her of being less accepting or tolerant than some of the more benign religions. I think it's a shame that we're always singling out Islam, by the way. Because obviously it is extreme. There are other religions out there that are very benign, and in fact, lots of positive. And I'm an atheist as well. But I don't, I'm just not that rabid, and I think there is a danger in being so extreme in any group.
Yeah, point taken. Point taken. Yeah.
So, Chris, is Atheism UK rabid? Is that a fair description?
I don't think so. In fact, a lot of the council go through phases anyway of being more fervent. I would call us, as opposed to rabid, I would call us fervent atheists. Not even firebrand atheists. Not even firebrand. None of us are firebrand. That's David Silverman.
Phil, will you just go to... Sorry, I forgot your name. David, David at the back there, and then we'll come to Catherine.
Thank you for the talk. It's interesting the statistics about a number of people being non-religious and that increasing. I'd just be interested to know what your views are on how deep that feeling of non-religion is. Even though they're non-religious, to what extent would those people regard themselves as atheist?
Right.
Because I imagine there's a lot of passive atheism, perhaps. Would you like to see people become more people in the country become more actively atheist, in a sense? Or to what extent are you happy with people being passively atheist, and they may not find comfort in the aisles of the church, but quite happy in the aisles of Tesco's and things like that, and shopping malls and things. So, firstly, would you like to see people become more actively atheist, and if so, how would you like to see that happen? Would you like to see a course in schools, for example, address that?
Well, certainly RE in Dorset includes a section on humanism and atheism, so I think that's a good thing, and that should go much further, to the extent that RE shouldn't be called RE, it should be called philosophy and ethics, or some other term. But, I don't know to what extent those people, how many of those non-religious people are atheists and classify themselves as atheists. It may be anything from 5 to 10% out of the 25% non-religious people. Those figures are a bit hard to come by. I think it's of that order, though. Yeah. Okay? Yeah.
Phil, can we come to Catherine? Catherine, if you just pop your hand up here.
Thank you very much, very interesting. Look, it's interesting, it seems to be like a spectrum of atheism. So you've got your firebrand at the end and you've got your Atheist UK sort of in the middle. A lot of the questions, and I'm sort of reflecting on what other people are asking as well, is this, the religion isn't, as from my perspective, I'm an atheist, but it's not all religion is bad. It's, to me, I'd like to focus on the extremists within those religions, or those events, your Al-Shabaabs or whatever, or your anti-abortion type people, so human rights focus. Is there someone on the spectrum which is more focused on, it's not your passive's quite nice, but you have your firebrand, your Atheist UK, someone a bit like not focusing on religion but targeting those extreme elements within religion?
Are you saying that there is there?
Yeah, is there, and what would it be called? And is that, because I wouldn't mind,
Yeah. I'm sure there are single groups that, for example, oppose some of the abortion issues that happen in America.
I mean, from a religious perspective, so to be able to, be anti-religion, but on those extremes.
I'm sure there are specialist groups that would encompass your type of views and would have an opinion on that. Yeah. Sorry, I can't be more specific than that. Yeah.
Let's go to Greg. I got just take the mic to Greg down.
I got an observation and a question, so maybe I'll put both of you at the same time. Just one quick point though. You said something about religious studies and philosophy and ethics. They are two separate courses, at least for A-level.
Yes, that's true.
Of
course, for GCSE, RE is often called philosophy and ethics. In fact, my daughter in Ringwood School...
No, they're definitely two separate courses.
Yes, for A-level. That's right. Yes. But,
the observation I was going to make was this. You say you've got 85 paid up members.
Yes, that's all.
I think the last count for humanists was around 20,000, wasn't it?
Yeah, I heard 10,000.
I don't know what the exact count is, but
10 or 15.
It seems to me that what you're describing is a subset of what humanism could be. Perhaps a more aggressive kind, I don't know, but what I wonder is, what is the advantage of being in Atheism UK? Because
well, we just focus on this issue, and whereas of course humanists are
but you could do that as a humanist as well.
Humanists are all atheists or agnostics, but of course humanism isn't just this topic of confronting and challenging religion. There's much more, as you know, to humanism than atheism.
Exactly. And the observation then is this. I'm also an evolutionary biologist, at least I started off that way.
Excellent.
And it seems to me that there's a real good reason for religion, which is to do with evolutionary biology. And it's actually good. What it does is, religion always reinforces moral values. And that affects survival. Moral values and ethical values are to do with survival of social groups. So it has a very positive social effect, and you could call that good. And it seems to me that that religion isn't something that can be dismissed as being totally bad. In fact, from a biological point of view, it has a very good effect.
Well, I would dispute that. I would dispute that strongly, and I could talk about my reasons for that over 10 minutes. But for example, if you look at the 10 Commandments, well, one of them is thou shalt not kill, isn't it?
That's got a very strong, in a social group, that's a
But
very strong
do you think
survival
that,
value.
right, but do you think that thou shalt not kill was an edict that was before the 10 Commandments? I suspect it was way before the 10 Commandments, going back tens of thousands of years.
But what I'm saying is that you're taking the 10 Commandments, that isn't the whole of religion.
No.
What they do is they reinforce very positive social values, and that leads to survival, and that is a very good thing.
Okay, we'll have to disagree on that.
I think we can have a big debate on that particular question.
It's a good one.
Let's
It's a good
go to
one.
John. John, have you still got a question? Yeah.
Yes, thanks. I knew Richard Green quite well, Chris, and one of the things that I miss about Richard is I was always going to get round to asking him what he meant when he used to make a contribution on morality. He was a great contributor to discussions at Cafe Feeder, which you probably know. And his contribution was always from an amoralist point of view. In other words, I was just shocked to discover that some people don't believe in morals. Can you make an observation on that, please?
He was an interesting character, amorals. Maybe he didn't think there was a set of morals laid in stone. I think that that's maybe where he was coming from. That it's up to us as individuals and as a society to come up with the best moral code. Maybe that's what his views were, but I can't really answer that. And unfortunately, we'll never know, as it were, because he died a year ago.
Yeah, one of the frustrating things for me about Richard Green is that he called himself an atheist, obviously, but he refused to call himself a humanist. And so we're never going to get a chance now to compare to humanism. But Chris, you are atheist and humanist, so
absolutely.
So that's progress as far as your organisation is concerned.
Can I just have one little? We're coming up to past.
Yeah.
Just 1 minute, just showing some of the events that we've been doing recently. So here we go. They're on the board. So we've just had our AGM. And we had David Silverman talking about fighting God at Conway Hall. I was I was interviewed for 90 minutes by Alobat TV, who were making a program called What are the Failures of Organised Religion? So that was a fascinating experience that I did that in May of this year. We had a debate with Bath University. Religion has become irrelevant in today's society. We unfortunately lost that very heavily because the religious groups banded together and came along, and unfortunately none of the atheists and humanists were there. So we were trounced in that debate. I was also invited to ring into Voice of Islam on human rights and religious rights. That was in February of this year. Also, I was invited on simply because I'm Atheism UK, not because of me. I was invited on the big questions. Would today's wise men believe in God? Unfortunately, because I was in the audience, not the front row, I never actually got to talk. It was a shame. We organised for Chris Johnson to show his film A Better Life, an exploration of meaning and joy in the world without God. That was last November, I think it was. And I also spoke on 2 occasions, actually, at a Cambridge Union in 2 debates, consecutive years, which is an amazing experience. I had 10 minutes to talk, as did the other 5 speakers, and that was a fantastic event. It was on the Catholic Church. And so just briefly, just running through, I won't mention, these are some of the campaigns and posts we've had on our website in the last, let's have a look, let's have a quick look at that. So bishops leaving the House of Lords, repealing collective worship, and so that goes just some of the topics over the last few. Yep. Right. So, in finally, we're 3 minutes late. If you'd like to register as a supporter of Atheism UK, it is free. If you want to become a member today, charge you 12 quid. Otherwise, full yearly membership is £24 every 12 months by direct debit, or concessions for pensioners, full-time students, etc. is £12 per year. And that's me. Thanks for watching.
Thank you. Aaron, I did promise you could have your question, but you also want to say something about BHA, so you can roll those two things into one if you like.
Okay. The question was about the census, that the children, anybody under 18, I presume, is going to be classed as... Not on. Is it not on?
How's that? Yeah. Yeah, about the census, and anybody under 18 is going to probably be at the opinion of the parents. So if it's a religious parent, they're going to put their children down as a religious child, I'm guessing. So 13 million children who don't get a chance to speak on the census would then be put down as religious. Yeah. Anyway, that's...
I think your point on that, bear in mind that, so we're talking about kids, aren't we?
Yeah.
Over 18?
Under 18.
So under 18, sorry. Oh, they can vote, can they?
Well, if you've got a religious parent and you've got a 2-year-old child, they're going to put down religious child, aren't they?
Right.
So 13 million children could be classed as, well, 3/4 of them could be classed as religious, but of course they're not. They're people with that opinion.
I think they have to be over 18 on the census, and that's not going to change. Anyway, I believe it's over 18.
Right, okay. Yeah, just to say a few words that I went to a BHA or Humanist UK event at the AGM, and they had lots of good things to say. And if you saw the report I put into the bulletin this month, you'd see many other good items on there. But basically, the BHA, or the Humanist UK as they're now called, is doing lots of good work, and along with Atheism UK. And it's probably worth joining, so if you haven't joined them already, do look at the leaflets that are on some of your chairs. And although they've got the old branding
this is actually it says it's an old BHA joining form, but this is, so we're trying to use them up in a way, or make use of them, but this is a joining form for Humanists UK, if you would like to join them. Sorry.
Yeah, so whereas Dorset Humanists is the local group and we do the local things here, on a national campaigning front, so where they're trying to affect government or trying to affect big change, then Humanists UK is the branch for that. So it's really good to be a member of both us and them if you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Okay, well, thank you very much, Chris. We're going to give you this bottle of wine to thank you very much. So another quick round of applause for Chris. I think Chris has highlighted some very interesting differences or difference of emphasis between humanism and atheism today that I found absolutely fascinating, and I think we can have a lot more discussion about this. So thank you very much, Chris. I do apologise on behalf of Chris and our technicians for the slight hitch during the proceedings, but we got through that okay. So I hope you've enjoyed this afternoon, found it stimulating. There's a little bowl by the door if you would like to contribute to our expenses today. £1 or £2 is always very welcome. There are leaflets at the back. Please do stay and have a coffee, a cup of tea, and carry on chatting and meeting new people. So thank you very much, and we'll see you again very soon. Thank you.